The history of the island of Rota is one of the most amazing and saddest stories that I believe I've ever researched. And I've never had the opportunity to do justice. The island is a rugged island. I'm sure you guys have been there, and you've driven up to the high ground and around the island. It is an absolutely beautiful island, especially in the spring, right? When the rains have turned the island green. The people are wonderful, self-sufficient people.
I was born in Rota. The village was Tatatsuk. It's pronounced Tatatsuk village. Okay, that's the village that the Japanese assigned to the Chamorro people, to the local people. They were taken from the whole village and transferred to Tatatsuk. So I was born in that village. There were a lot of stories that my father told me. During the Japanese time, before the war, this was before the war, the Japanese were they're very helpful people. They allow people, the Rotanese people, to earn money. And that's one thing I like about the Japanese is, you can go to the boondocks or forest and cut some papaya and get the sapling from the papaya, and you can bring it over to the store in Japanese store, and you can get some money out of it. Or also the mushroom. You can earn money from, the mushroom that you can gather from the woods.
During the period that are not war, the Japanese built stores here. They even have dried tuna facility, and they have all kinds of basically small town business. They even have a geisha house. So it's a good small town environment. The life during or prior to the war was very pleasant, and there is no discrimination other than perhaps like what the previous speaker said, that the opportunity to go to school is only limited to third grade. Sometimes if you're good student, they might adopt you to go to Palau to learn some more, especially in the trade areas like carpentry and electrical things and so on. So that's the opportunity. So basically it's third grade, and both my mom and dad never go past third grade.
Rota was used as a communication standpoint from here to Guam and Saipan to communicate with during the Japanese. The Japanese soldiers were doing that, and they communicate through Guam and Saipan. And like they were saying that the B-29 is coming from Guam and they're gonna bomb you people up in Saipan. This is a communication island for the Japanese during the war. That's how I learned that. And they do have a Japanese command post where we go on the backside of the island. And we call that Paligi area, going around the island. And it's really a command post. And you can see a lot of things going on.
My father is a salesman for the company. The Nambu company is one of the salesmen for the Nambu company, the sugarcane factory. He's the one who's doing some accounting work. They call it sorbang. It's a Japanese similar to calculator. So he's the one who compute everything, the export to Japan. That's what he did. They call it sorbang. That's how I know. You compute. So and my mom, she's just doing some farming activity. She doesn't work for the Japanese. But my dad go to school at the highest there they go is I think only third grade. I'm sorry. That's all. You have to go to. He said you have to go to Palau to further your grades. But in Rota, it's only third grade. It's the last that you can go. But during that time, you cannot speak your own language, especially in school or outside. If you're outside on the village, you cannot speak the local language. You have to speak Japanese, because if they call you, they will punish you. It's mandatory that you speak the Japanese language. So if you look at the culture on those years, the old people, they blend it. When I'm growing up, I can feel those kind of no introduction of the Japanese culture to my growing up during those times. That there's discipline, total discipline, especially at the house. That you cannot, like if my parents is outside the kitchen, you cannot go out there and sit with them. It must be old people, and that's part of the Japanese tradition, custom. You cannot sit with them.
It sounds strange where the place I was born, because it's already abandoned, but the area is Ungino, where the Sunset Villa now, the corner up going up to the airport, used to be after the war, when the people resided there, because of there was stable water at that time from we call it the water coming from the ground, and it was in a river. It was just the water coming out from the mountain.
Up in Savannah, close to Peace Memorial, that's where they're harvesting the phosphate. And they got this cable cart, from the mountain all the way up, going down. I don't know if you know that honey garden owned by Senator Paul McDonald. If you go to the cliffside, you can see it's a built-in concrete dock. They brought it down from Savannah by cable car, then they loading it there outside the dock. In fact, there's a ship there that sunk. It's a very popular dive spot, because during the war, I think the plane, or I don't really know, either the plane or U.S. submarine torpedoed it and sunk it. So it's still there now. And like I said, it's a popular diving spot.
During the Japanese time, there are lots of Okinawans here to work in the sugarcane. I think as well as Tinian, and not only Okinawan, but some Korean, especially on Tinian. Here, mostly Okinawan and Japanese.
Like it's about Japanese. They thought about the German, Spanish, but Japanese more. And during the Japanese, my dad told me Japanese are mean, but they still accept by saying they're good people. They know how to discipline people. And during Japanese time, people are much better than what it is now.
Based on my father's story, the Japanese are kind of rude to the people of Rota, because they thought that some of the people of Rota, especially the ones that are staying in Rota, are traitors to the Japanese. So this is what happened. They were mistreated by the Japanese based on the way the people reacted to the relationship with the Japanese. And there's some restriction during those times, especially during the war, that they cannot, especially daytime, you cannot make fire. You cannot go out and harvest your crops because of the fact that you might be killed with the bombing of the U.S. And at the same time, the Japanese does not allow them to harvest their own plantation, because they're trying to save all those crops for the Japanese military. So they have to come out at nighttime to steal their own crops, which is very inappropriate. And the sufferings and the sacrifice that they experience during those times, it's hard. The life is so hard.
But right when the war began, or prior to the war, when my father came back, the Japanese I think started from 1938, 39, they start, I think, preparing for war. So they asked the able-bodied men to start digging caves and bunkers and bringing in their war machinery, like cannon and all kinds of war preparation.
When the bombardment and what's called a machine gun started shooting, the Americans airplanes started shooting. That was the beginning of the hardship for the people of Rota. And the people of Rota actually suffered two atrocities, one from the Japanese army and one from the bombardment, the U.S. bombardment. So take a look at which one is harder.
My father was farming here. He had this banana, sweet potatoes, tapioca, but he cannot touch it. He cannot harvest his plantation. He need to ask the Japanese, because the Japanese will hold that for the food for the soldiers. And I don't remember about the cow and the pig, but all that farm product has to go to Japanese. That's for the food. Now during the war, they told me that if they're gonna cook, they couldn't cook inside the cave, or they wait until dark, because if they build a fire daytime, they can see the pilot can see the smoke, and then that's where they start shooting down. So most of the time, night time, that's time they go out from the cave. And my parents live in this cave. We had a cave here. That's where they're living. They cannot go outside because of the planes. Sometimes they flew over, and sometimes they don't hear. They just start boom, 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 boom. So they're scared,
The Japanese atrocities, the army took over the administration of the island, and they apparently installed martial law. So the people of Rota had to, hide in order to. In other words, they steal their own crops to live, because the Japanese won't allow them to get their own crops. They used and also they used the men to dig trenches for fortification, and that was hard labor, and without pay, and from sunrise to sundown. So that's a really hard thing, and then my father would have to try to steal his own crop to feed us.
We hide there in the east side of the island, because we moved already from Tatasuk, and we went to what do you call that, my farm, my mother's farm, and then we hide there for during the war. And at the same time, there's a big hole based on my father's story up in Uzulanhulu. They call it Uzulanhulu. The Japanese government instructed the local people and some Okinawan to dig that hole to kill all the Chamorro people and throw it down and bury it. And there's another hole that they dug that's up in Ofnia area. So it's the similar story of what they're gonna do on the northern and the southern part of the island. The intention is to eradicate the people of Rota, but actually they were fortunate to be liberated by the American. So that is most of what my father told me during the time that I grew up.
All the people from Tatasuk village were moved up to Akodo area, where there's a cave there. So basically, I was born during that time, and I grew up inside the cave. So perhaps I learned how to walk, holding on to the nunu roots, just to learn, because the war came in 1943 until 1945, when we were basically liberated. And my mom, my dad is always assigned to help the Japanese in all these cave assignments and digging caves and so on. Well, my mom basically is the food provider by going to the reef and trying to catch a liling or some kind of a fish for our food. And she also went down to an area where she can collect water for our drink. So during that time, during the wartime, it's very difficult time for the people here. The Japanese took over their farm areas. They are not allowed to stay in their own house. They took whatever animals that the people are raising, like chicken. They take it for them during the military occupation. And at that time, we understand there are about 5,000 Japanese soldiers. During that period, the life is very difficult because sometimes if they heard that you know how to speak English, they will take you out and see whether you're a spy for the Americans. They might torture you or punish you. Even light-skinned people are, and a little bit, not brown, but a little bit other type of eyes, they will question you that you probably are part American or something. So those are very bad environment to grow up basically or experience during that time, especially during the wartime.
Because we hide on the cave where the water is running, the stream down there. That's the place where we hide. But I don't know where we get the food.
During that period, 1943 to 1945, there are 9 children born from Rota, and there are only 4 survive. The reason for that is because some of the mothers are afraid of the war, and they cannot produce milk. So the babies are malnourished and eventually die. Also, there's not enough food, so that's basically the reason for malnourishment, and the kids died.
Well, right after the war, my dad was telling me that, right after the war, everything was kind of silent. So the people start coming up from the cave. So that's how they met some of the Marines. They're big white guys, So they start sharing some of the food they have because they're hungry. Just imagine they cannot harvest their own food. So it's the military that start sharing some of the food to them, like ration. Then the military started giving them some materials to build their house. If I'm not mistaken, it was Tinian. They brought some of the roofing tin and plywood from Tinian to the people of Rota, and that's how they built the house. Based on the old people, they were saying that it's Tinian because the military, they built a lot of infrastructures. So they brought some of that to Rota and they start building their house now. Yeah. So in those years during the 50s, most of the people of Rota, I think there's less than 100 at Songsung village that have a decent house.
But before the Japanese left here on the island, they break all his plate and broke all his dishes. Not for the Chamorro, not to have those things. They break all his tools.
After the war, then the Trust Territory government came. Their headquarters are situated in Guam because Saipan and Tinian are off limit. It belongs to the U.S. Navy, the NTTU, Naval Tactical Training Unit. And they're forbidden. Nobody can come to Saipan. But here in Rota is a separate district. Rota is one district, Palau, Yap, Truk, at that time they call it Truk, Pohnpei, and the Marshall Islands, and later on Kosorai. So anyway, after the war, and the trust territory or in as administration, they open the opportunity for more freedom, and also opportunity for the people to go to school, the children to go to school. In fact, they have a, what do you call this, a trust territory scholarship, which I am a recipient of such.
Well, the word itself, war, is not a really good word. War is everything, destructions. It could be human, it could be property, and that's really a tragedy for the people. And nobody can avoid that. That's how I feel. And I was so lucky because I was born after the war.